Welcome on into episode 13 of The Stack. Hello, draft friends. Zach Wolchuk with you here as Bryan Broaddus is joining us live from the Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. Of course, Iisha Morrison, our fellow scouting friend with us. And my goodness, look at that glowing face that you see in the background. The one and only Bryan Broaddus, who is back in his natural habitat right now. Bryan, how freaking awesome have these few days been as you've been out there in Indy? Set the scene for us, man. What's all the scuttlebutt going on right now?
He's beaming.
Yeah, I am so happy to be with you guys this morning. Zach, thank you so much for filling in the captain's chair there. And Iisha, it's great to see you as well. A lot going on here at the Combine. Brian Schottenheimer is going to visit with the media here in about 30 minutes. So a lot of folks, from the Dallas Cowboys side of things are getting ready for that. We had the opportunity this morning to visit with Will McClay on 105.3 The Fan with the Sean and RJ show, and Bobby Belt as well. Had a really, really good conversation with him. We had Dane Brugler on as well. So if you're into those kinds of things, there's a lot of content that we have out there on 105.3 The Fan, but also bringing a lot of stuff here, on Crown Global Media. But yeah, the scene is really cool. The players have done a really nice job. It's a very, very difficult time for them. You can tell there's some anxious guys up there, but for the most part, I've been really, really pleased from what I've heard and what I've seen. There's the group with the linebackers and the defensive linemen went through yesterday. Today we have had the tight end group go through. Boy, I'll tell you what, guys, there is a good looking group of those edge rushers. I was a little bit surprised when you're watching these guys on tape and then you see them physically in person. How good a David Bailey looks, what Mesidor looks like, what Howell from Texas A&M looks like. Just a really Rodriguez from Texas Tech, just a really good group of players, and the way they were speaking, and really excited to get these the workouts going here on Thursday.
Has there been anybody that surprised you? Maybe you mentioned how good some people looked, but did anybody look like Ruben Bain Jr., a little smaller maybe than you thought he'd look? Because that's always something when we finally get a firsthand view, we get our eyes on these players. That's something watching tape that might help you out a little bit with some of this size.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Voch and I this morning on Doing All Right, we're talking about that. I was a little surprised at how shorter, Bain is listed as a 6'3" guy. And then, then you've got guys like, with Howell and R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma. And those guys look bigger. Those guys, I mentioned Bailey and how he looked, and, and it was really kind of cool to see that. But I was impressed with, like I say, with those, I was thinking that R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma was probably a shorter guy, but man, he looks the part. He's a wide shoulder guy, thick neck. I mean, he looks like a player standing up there. So I was like, man, is that a smaller kind of an edge rusher guy? No, we get all the official measurements and stuff like that, but boy, he's a good looking. These edges were good looking players. These defensive tackles, there's some good looking players that were standing up to the linebackers. I was impressed overall with those guys, and just a couple that I mentioned.
Well, R. Mason Thomas looks like a player because he is, Bryan. So
you're
on the money, brother.
He's been impressive.
Hey, somebody check Aisha's arm length, because she's patting herself on the back on that one right there.
I'm excited.
You have been very excited. Let me ask you this, Aisha, and I think to me that when I watch the kid play, and I know that you've kind of talked about him a couple of different times, but the trait, is there something on tape that just stands out about him? You don't have to get into the full report, but if there's something you said, listen, okay, Bryan, you're seeing a guy that's square and looks good, looks the part, but just if you had to describe him in one trait, and by the way, that's something that Will McClay, I asked him this question today, And I said, what's the one thing as a scout that we miss on the most?
Mm-hmm.
He says it's the traits is the one thing that we miss the most. And so I'm like, oh, okay. But I'm going to ask you this question, Iisha. What's the one thing that you really, really like about R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma?
So I'm going to say it's a mixture of two things, but it really is one thing. It is the speed and how he controls the speed. Because obviously the tackling ability and some of the things he's able to do in the closing speed, that's one of the things we loved about Micah. That's
Sure.
we love the closing speed. We love the suddenness off the ball and the way that they can really sift through trash. His speed, which is why he's talking kind of big at the podium about the fact that he knows he's going to run.
Yeah.
It shows up on tape, and it's a practical speed. So for me, I think that's the biggest thing is the get off and how under control he still plays within himself despite the fact that he can really burn. I mean, this is a guy that was a former track athlete. You know, that's why it's another reason why we like multi-sport guys. So that's
I think
listen,
listen, you've been on him from the jump. I was expecting maybe a smaller body guy. I keep talking about it. It sounds weird, but man, that guy looks bigger in person than he does on tape. And I think teams are probably happy to see that.
Yeah, I know Brandon Graham was a body type that you kept on referencing when it came to R. Mason Thomas. But, I mean, he is one of these guys that fires off the ball. I'm with you 100% there, Iisha, when it comes to his ability to just trigger at the snap, boom, he goes. And then the bull rush and the power he's able to play with his hands. No question about that.
Well, it makes more sense now that Brian says, like, you put in a body to, seeing him in person.
That's what's cool about being here.
Because when you do see the speed, like you might think like maybe he's not as powerful, but like in seeing him, that tells you that he must be pretty powerful because you see guys' heads pop back when he makes contact, and he's a low tackler. He's a very low tackler. I think that he understands balance, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing him run. I guess one of my questions I have for you was, it's kind of getting talked about on socials. I've been seeing it. We knew that some of these players coming in here, some of these top guys, had arms that look like mine. And I'm 5'1". So are you concerned? Is there anybody's size, length, anything that's, if you've gotten any measurables, I know they're just starting to come out. Are there any that have concerned you, that have perked up your ears?
Well, we always talk about the arm length of these players, especially with the edges and the tackles. And it always seems to pertain, with the offensive tackles. And, we've seen short arm guys play tackle, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, no, we got to kick them inside. I had a scout one time in the league, and this was just pretty recently, tell me it's like, when you worry about the arm length, like especially on an offensive lineman or defensive lineman, when's the last time you saw somebody really extend on somebody? And they're saying, and I said, well, it's sometimes you get that guys, the hands get inside and they sit down, and then, you see them kind of hold them right there. And they're like, exactly. If you're extending your arms completely out, you're likely overextended. You're likely leaning forward.
Sure.
You have to play with a little bit of some bend in your elbows to get your hands inside and to be able to control. But if you're fully extended on somebody, you're likely over the top of your feet. And I just know watching guys, like, if you're telling me that Howell from A&M and Bain from Miami are short-armed edges, I get it. I watched that Bain play 17 games for Miami. And against some really tall, long offensive tackles, and his ability to control, to get his hands inside, to shock the guy, to get off blocks. Man, come on. It's arm length. Yeah. I think it was something that we just kind of, as scouts, we were always like, oh, short arm. And we burned it into our brain that it's a problem. But if you watch the scout told me, when's the last time you saw an offensive lineman completely extend on a guy?
Yeah.
And I said, you don't see it often. But listen, you can't, certain positions. I think there's guys that defy certain positions.
Heck yeah.
And they play like you were talking about with R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma. This guy is explosive. The first step is explosive. You watch the center from Florida, Slaughter. Mm-hmm. You watch Heck from the center from
Kansas State.
From Kansas State. These are smaller 300-pound guys. Well, how are they blocking these guys?
Right.
You know, it's positioning, it's strength. It's not always the arm length. It's not always the measurables. I have such problems with tackles that lack strength. Well, how the hell are they blocking these guys? Mm-hmm. They figure out ways to do it. And I think that we're making way, way too much of arm length when it comes to these offense and defensive linemen. And, you know, I think that to me, these players have done a really nice job of adapting to how they're built and any deficiencies that they might have.
Okay, so you say that, and let me ping this back to the both of you. Matt Miller of ESPN has given us this nugget. You have 30 7/8 inch arms for Ruben Bain. You have 30 1/4 arm length for Cassius Howell. Those would be the shortest arms for an edge rusher drafted in the first round since 1999. So we're going a ways here now, and I know that the old Krusty and you and other scouts out there might be saying, "Ooh, is that more for those that think like, okay, Ruben Bain, you kick him inside to 3-tech at times, and we saw him do that at Miami, and he's effective at it." When you actually hear those numbers and you hear that statistic, does that cause you at all to say, "Ooh, maybe there's something here," because they track this for a reason?
So the arm length is less of a concern to me than the feet. Like, then some of these guys having injury issues with their feet, some of these defensive tackles, some of these defensive ends. I mean, I know that it's possible for guys to still be able to play through those things, but we've experienced something like that here in Dallas with the DeMarcus Lawrence. And as awesome as he was throughout his career here, and as awesome as he was with the Seahawks, I think that he is with the Seahawks, rather. I do think that his foot injuries did play a significant role, and they were later. And some of these guys, this is happening at the front end of their career,
right?
With a defensive end, you know, somebody that we've talked about depends on ankle flexibility and being able to bend and to set the edge and stuff. I'm more concerned about the feet injuries within some of this class than
the short arms.
Arms, because I mean, even with DeMarcus Lawrence, he went to the Seahawks, had a fantastic year, but I do think it's something to consider. He did not play a lot of the last year. And I think that time to rest probably helped him be prepared for the season. His foot injuries, even in our private conversations, they mattered. And it made a difference in his play. And for some of these young guys to be starting off having repeated ones, like a Mesidor, who I think is awesome.
Right.
But like, so my next question for y'all is, how do you think that the league is looking at these contracts? Because there's a lot of 25-year-olds.
Yeah.
There's a lot of older
Let me
guys.
circle back. Yeah, let me circle back real quick. No. Let me circle back. I'm going to say this about the short arm guys, the Howells and the Bains and stuff, just real quick, and then the older guys. I think that's something that, you know, another thing that I just mentioned this. I watched Bain play 17 weeks. I saw him break down tackles all over the country. I saw him take on guys much taller than him, guys much heavier than him, guys that maybe not quicker than him, but I saw him breaking guys down. I saw him bending. I saw him rushing the passer. I saw him getting low. I saw him getting, you know, making tackles behind the line of scrimmage and all that. I'll say this about Howell. You know, and Zach, I think, has made really good points about Howell when we've talked about how he's been able to. Is he a guy that's going to be, you know, against the Notre Dames and the Miamis, and maybe he didn't have the best games. Maybe he wasn't, you know, at the top of his game. But I will say this, there's so much tape of these guys making plays, and they figure it out. They absolutely figure it out. So if you give me a chance to draft Bain at 12 because they think he has short arms, and hell, maybe the Cowboys think the same thing. If they get on the clock and Bain's there, trust me, I'm going to be screaming that they need to take this guy. because I've seen a guy the way that he plays for 17 weeks. I've seen him make play after play after play with what everybody's measured as short arms.
I agree with you 100%. And Ruben Bain is one of those players that I think as we've gone through and watched more, when we started this journey November 1st watching players, and I first started watching Ruben Bain, my initial thought was, okay, is he a 3-tech? And we talked about that on one of our earliest episodes.
Absolutely.
You watch him more and more and his ability to break down some of these tackles. Honestly, the short arms for him might be somewhat of a superpower. He's a guy that kind of generates natural leverage, and he uses some of that, the hand fighting, and he keeps his chest clean in a way to where it's very difficult to handle and block him. So I don't have that concern whatsoever, and I love what you brought up, Bryan, with what Will said in terms of, measurables and traits. And I think sometimes scouts, we get stuck in that. It's like, okay, this is a guy physically.
Way stuck.
He's got all the traits. He's got everything that I'm looking for. Well, how's the tape look? And does the guy have production? And that's, I think, what we're learning in this is, at the end of the day, that's probably the most important thing. Now, Iisha, you brought up the age factor here.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
My initial thought when you say this, and I know our buddy Sean Sharif at 105.3 The Fan, who you're out there and you're doing excellent work with in the mornings, getting to do these interviews. Akeem Mesidor is a guy, and there might be others watching for whatever team that you're a fan of, because as Bryan says, we're a one-stop shop. So when you're evaluating Akeem Mesidor, he's going to be 25, and we've seen more and more of these guys throughout the last few drafts because of the COVID year, right? So guys are playing in college longer. I'm less than I used to be concerned about this second contract stuff. I mean, how many guys are you seeing now, do they even make it through their rookie deal? Just draft a good football player. We'll cross that bridge on the second contract when we get to it. If I can ensure that I'm getting a player that I know for 4 or 5 years, hopefully with that first round, 5th year option, I'm picking it up, then all right, we were successful. We drafted a good player. We did what we needed to do. Some of these guys, heck, Mozzie Smith, year 3, is traded from the Cowboys. Taco Charlton's not making it through his rookie deal. You can go down the list of the Raiders players that they've drafted that haven't made it through their rookie season. So to me, I think we're focusing way too much on the age. If Akeem Mesidor physically checks out, Iisha, with the feet, I got no issue taking him in the first round because the tape is darn good, and he might be the most ready-made, him and David Bailey to me, in the draft in terms of edges. Ruben Bain Jr. can throw in that conversation too, being able to get immediately productivity rushing the passer.
Oh, I mean, so even with the age thing, so are you saying that you don't think, because I'm looking at how the league looks at it. Like, how is the league looking at, because we are seeing this trend in general, like because of the transfer portal, because of, obviously because of COVID, we have seen guys going later and staying in schools longer. So do you
NIL, the money,
NIL,
they just stay for the money. Yeah.
So yeah, of course. So do you gentlemen think that the league is looking at these first, like the first contract, and then that's it, and they're not really focusing on, anything else after that until it is earned, or they're just waiting and seeing, and not doing a lot of future planning?
Yeah, okay. We talk about how we look at it for a league of the draft, because we're trying to be the one-stop shop. If you're looking at it at a Dallas Cowboys lens, you have to think about it this way. You're probably going to have Dak Prescott for 3 years. You hope you have him for more. But, if you get players, and Zach, I think you said it very well, just let me draft players. Give me the best players. This, regardless of the age, regardless of the arm length, regardless of, if you determine in your stack that when it's your turn to pick that this guy has everything you want as a player, I just think you have to do something defensively. You can't wait around and try and develop players with Dak Prescott. I mean, I think Dallas is in a mode right now where they have to spend money in free agency, and they will. But they also have to draft. They have to do better drafting. They have not drafted defensive players like they've drafted offensive players. Mm-hmm. They haven't. It's been very, very poor. And I think Will McClay understands that. And maybe the 4 different coordinators have something to do with that. But I'll say this, though. I think if you draft Akeem Mesidor and you play him, he is going to be ready to play at 25 years old. I remember Bill Parcells getting mad at us about Terrence Newman, who we drafted out of Kansas State, who was older guy. Terrence Newman played till he's about 40 years old. Not every player can do that. Not every player could do that. But the one thing that Mesidor he can line up and play right now. And we've seen the learning curve. We saw it with Donovan Ezeraku. I thought Donovan Ezeraku the learning curve would be really, really small for him. It wasn't. But you need defensive players that can come in and play right now. Just because of the window, if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, just because of the window of your quarterback. And if you're a team that's following along and you got a veteran quarterback and you don't know how longer you're going to have that guy, well, you're in the same boat too. You're going to need to draft guys, whether it's edges, linebackers, hell, if it's offensive linemen. I mean, you need to protect there are teams that have these quarterbacks that are going down to the end, but you do not want to waste. Houston's in the situation, the Texans are looking at offensive players. They got good offensive players, but they need more. They need to help their quarterback. They've got one of the best defenses in the league. It would be a shame to waste that type of defense and not be good on offense and not do anything to help your quarterback. So I think the Cowboys are in that mode right now where they have to try and maximize having Dak, CD, potentially George Pickens, maybe for another year, and they have to maximize on that. And so I'm all for getting, if the player's a little older, I have no problem with that because, as you mentioned, Zach, COVID, NIL, all these things have made these players stay a little bit longer at their schools.
Well, the old ones are like baby free agents.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, when you used to get a player that came in at 21 years old. I mean, some of these guys now that still will.
Yeah, these older ones, you look at them as a baby free agent.
Yeah, initially. They would be through like Caleb Downs coming in, Sonny Styles, these guys that'll be 21. They will be the age of an Akeem Mesidor.
A baby.
By the end of it. No, you're absolutely right.
That's funny. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. No, that makes sense. I understand the perspective of Dallas has to win now. I just wanted to ask you guys as this stuff comes
as a league, I think as a league, we're getting more accustomed to having older players.
Yeah.
Just because of all the things that we walk through, the NIL, the COVID, we're getting into the tail end of the COVID thing, but the NIL has made players stay in a little bit longer.
Yeah.
There's some guys that, that we've looked at. I was trying to think of the cornerback that, there's guys, for example, let me see guys like Neal and Everett. I think Everett from Georgia, guys stayed, I think is a 5th year guy. I think there's some of these guys that, just decided, hey, I'm not coming out. I'm going to stay, make some NIL money. I like school. And here we go. Garrett Nussmeier, Nussmeier quarterback could have come out last year, didn't come out. So wanted to stay, wanted to be a part of this. And so we're going to see older guys really across the league.
Josh Josephs, the edge from Tennessee, was a guy that could have come out last year, decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and stay. James Pierce Jr. leaves. I've got the opportunity to step up and be the top guy, and that's a player that the Cowboys will be meeting with as well. Aisha, what do you want
I think Trey Moore, the defensive end.
Yeah, Texas.
Well, I feel like if I'm not mistaken, he's kind of bounced too, right? So I mean,
Bud Clark, the safety from TCU, is a 6th-year guy.
We're seeing more guys bounce more too. They will go to another program each year. I mean, some of them. So it's
Romello Height from Tech. I mean, that guy
four programs. Yeah,
absolutely.
And he can get jiggy.
He can get jiggy with it. He sure can. Okay, let's look at some of these who can get jiggy with it players. Brian. The Cowboys have their list of formal visits that they're having. Now, the difference for those of you, and people will ask this question a lot, what's the difference between a formal and an informal visit? So, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong here. My understanding of this, the formal visit is they actually meet. They have that 15-minute visit with the team. That's a legitimate meeting. An informal visit can be something as simple as we are walking together from the hotel to Lucas Oil Stadium, and we just say hello in passing, but we had a little brief conversation. That's your informal visit.
Yeah, and let me in talking to some people, because there were some questions about Dallas's list, and who all they're visiting with. And I talked to somebody here at the combine, and I'm like, man, it seems like that's a lot of names. Those, you got so many X amount of visits, and you're losing them, you're using them all. And then I do feel like they're going to use the majority of their visits on defensive players. We'll see how many offensive visits they have. I think that number, when it's all said and done, when reported, will be a little bit small, will be a little bit surprising. Don't remember ever now they've got the opportunity with Dallas days, with that being in the vicinity, they have their thoughts about this. I mean, they have their thoughts about, okay, we could bring a guy in. We have that ability for that, the 30 visits, all those things I'm talking about. But I want to point something out. I had somebody tell me this. The number of actual official visits might not be accurate. Ooh, and a lot of guys and gals are doing a great job of trying to run this down. But what's happening is a lot of players are getting at the podium and saying they've had an official visit with the Cowboys. And maybe it was not an official visit, but it was a visit. So
which would be the
numbers might be skewed a little bit, about who's had official visits according to a player or who's had unofficial visits. You know what I'm saying? With just the small interactions, maybe met with a coach. Officially, they want to put you in the chair, they put you on the clock, and away we go. But I had somebody tell me that the large number that the Cowboys have had might be a little skewed because players are saying official visit when in fact it was kind of an unofficial visit.
Are other teams privy to your official and unofficial visits?
Well, as far as having are they in the room or do they know who you're interviewing?
The list of the players that they're talking to.
Yes.
I've never. It's a great question, Iisha, because I've never asked that. I don't think they do. Okay. The combine officials, you submit the names that you want to visit with, and then the combine makes sure to schedule the player. Like, who is it that somebody I saw was gotten, 26 visits already, with teams.
Might have been Caleb Downs.
He did say he's met with so many
Caleb
teams.
Downs
but there was somebody that they've got. I'm sorry, man. That just, I should have written it down, but it might have been Pons. Might have been Pons.
Who is one that the Cowboys have not visited with yet. And they're talking with basically, at least what's been reported, you name a corner, especially all the first and second round names we've discussed outside of Pons. Yeah. The Cowboys are visiting with all the cornerbacks here.
I think it's Pons. I think that's the name. I got that right. That he's had visits with 26 teams or that was working in that direction. So, that's a chore in itself. But, it's, I heard something really interesting too. There's a team, and I couldn't get the name of the team, but there's a team that's asking these players questions in a way to maybe throw them off track a little bit. Like, where do you think the population is of the United States? What do you think the total number of countries there are in the world? So this team is just trying, these players are so programmed to come in and give answers. They've been prepped on, what's going to happen and how to go, how the interviews are going to go. Teams are trying to initially throw the players off and see if they can get them kind of flustered a little bit, or just maybe they're trying to get a little bit more Trivial Pursuit knowledge. But I heard a team was asking a question about United States population and how many countries there are in the world.
This ain't Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I mean, it kind of is. Dang it. Barnacles, it is kind of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yeah, we're talking millions of dollars on the line here.
Can they phone a friend?
Yeah, well, I think what 50, this team 50. Is trying to do, the team's trying to throw them off just a little bit, but they're also just to see if they get close to the actual number. of how many people. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool that they're just, but yeah, these kids come in here in these interviews and they really are prepped. They spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, these agencies, to make sure that their guys are ready to go. So that was one of the little things I heard just a little bit ago.
They got to be ready.
Well, does that list thing help? If other teams are not privy to.
Well, look, I think it helps us.
Because you think
I think it helps us kind of get an idea for the players in which they're going to be looking at. I think the 30-day visits list.
The 30 visits, the one you got to know.
That's the one of value.
And to your point, Brian, I thought it was, Anthony Hill Jr., the linebacker from Texas we've discussed. He is not on the formal list that what we've seen so far that we know of right now for the Cowboys. Jadarian Price, the running back from Notre Dame, and I'm bringing him up because Jeremiah Love is supposedly a formal visit guy. But those are two players, Hill and Price, that are DFW natives that play high school football in the area.
We'll get the 30.
Right. So, yes, the Cowboys know they'll have the Dallas Day.
Dallas Day, right.
So you do kind of have to do your homework and maybe not read too much into certain players because they might know in the back of their mind, like, it's okay if we don't visit with him here. We'll have the other opportunity later down the road for Dallas Day to be able to visit with them.
Okay. I'm tracking.
Brian, one thing that I wanted to ask you, the defensive tackles.
Yeah.
I mentioned the corners, and Iisha, you're chomping at the bit here. So, all right, Tua, let me get to you here first, then we'll pivot to Brian.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
The Cowboys were listed with a lot of defensive tackles. Like, we assumed that's a position you're probably good at. But Caleb Banks, the defensive tackle from Florida. Peter Woods, defensive tackle from Clemson. And Peter Woods is saying 4-eye might be the best position for him. So Christian Parker talking about, we're going to be multiple. We're going to be doing the different spacing. Did that stand out for you in any way, the defensive tackles the Cowboys are maybe meeting with here?
Darrell Jackson.
Aisha, yeah, you got it. Aisha, go ahead.
No, I saw Darrell Jackson, too. No,
yes.
I was a little shocked at all, like the defensive tackles. That was something that I wanted to bring up today because I was surprised that Dallas was that open to looking at them. A lot of these guys have 3 techie vibes, or can do 3 techie vibes, or move across the line. Brian, did those stand out to you? Because they did to me this morning when I was looking. I didn't think we were going to see that many.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what's going to happen here, guys. They are trying to find guys to play 4-eye is what they're doing.
Oh.
They're thinking some of these defensive tackles are their guys, and we've kind of touched on it, again, from a Cowboy point of view. We pointed that you got Oso Digizua, you've got Quinnen Williams, you've got these guys, Kenny Clark, you've got these guys that are going to have to maybe play a 4-eye, which is inside eye of the tackle, lined up in that gap. So I think the Cowboys with some of these defensive tackle interviews are trying to get an idea of what guys, if they put them up on the board or talk to them and, get to know them a little bit, are they capable of playing that position? So instead of maybe thinking about some of these guys as that one technique inside the shoulder of the guard or the 3 technique outside shoulder of the guard, can they play a gap over and play maybe some more 4 inside eye, head up 5? And that's, I think, what this is all about. I don't think this is about looking for 1 techniques or 3 techniques or anything like that. I think this is about, can these tackles line up a little bit wider and play in this scheme? 2
of the guys on there, Xavier Harris out of Ole Miss, he's a defensive tackle.
Tell us more about Xavier Harris, because that's a player we have not talked about.
We haven't talked about him a whole bunch.
Not at all.
I only watched a couple of games from him last night, so I'm not well versed. But I just saw his name on the list.
What stood out to you?
The size. I mean, he's 6'8", 330, 34. And 5/8 inch arms, so I mean his hands are huge, 10-inch hands, and you see it. It's heavy. His hands are super heavy. Also, too, he can take on double teams, but he can do some of that stuff that you're talking about, Brian. Getting skinny, through those gaps and being able to plant his outside leg and to really kind of slip in between. He has some explosiveness off the line. I do think he has violence to him too. I see why Dallas would be meeting with him. He also met with the 49ers, the Bengals, and the Bucks. Actually sounds like the Bengals are very interested in him. I'm seeing what you're saying, Brian, now that I'm looking at some of these defensive tackles. I'm seeing maybe the 4-eye situation, because two of these guys, I mean, they can get upfield. Like, he can get upfield, but he can also take on double teams in a pinch.
Right.
But he's explosive. So I see your vibe, Brian.
I really do. Yeah, I think so. I think that you're in a situation where, you're in a situation right now where they're looking for defense line, but don't think of these guys as the traditional 1s and 3s. Mm-hmm. Think of them more as playing a little bit wider gaps, and I think you'll have a better understanding of that.
Is Peter Woods, defensive tackle from Clemson, who came into this season as a top 10 potential pick, when you looked at preseason mock drafts, and him and his teammate, TJ Parker, whom the Cowboys are meeting with both, at least they're on the list of formals that they've said at the podium they've had with the Cowboys. We've talked about Clemson as the production with both those guys dipped this past year. But with playing a little wider, Peter Woods is a player that does excite me with that, because the tape for him, especially I went back and watched South Carolina and Texas in 2024. Peter Woods is a hell of a player.
Yeah.
I mean, he is 6'3", 315. He's got the width for it. He's got the size. He can play a one-tech for you with his ability to stop the run. I mean, him as a run defender, he is one of the best run defenders, period, in this entire draft class. But he does have some speed out of his stance.
And switch, too.
He does. He absolutely does. Yeah. And I think that leverage is something he needs to sustain better. I put it, he could maybe excel in a slant front, where you kind of get him on the move a little bit and have him some shoot gaps. But I wonder if Peter Woods is one of these guys. Can he make it to 20? Like, maybe with the Cowboys, we haven't spent a ton of time discussing him. And maybe some of these other teams that you mentioned, Iisha, that are also looking at Harris from Ole Miss. Peter Woods is a player that's going to go in the first round, in my opinion. At 12 and 20, is he more of a guy that we should look at the conversation, or even for a team like Cincinnati there that's picking at 10, which is a wild card team?
Yeah, and that's why, I went through and tried to look at, some of the other teams that are looking at some of the guys that are on the list and kind of see where they fit or where they match. So if they do show interest in them, that can kind of give us an idea. If y'all think, Brian, did the scout when you was a scout, did the scouts use the media at all? Was that a thing?
I think there were guys and gals that you followed that were the beat writers of the team. I know I had a really good network of media members. It actually got me in a little bit of trouble, because couple of times I was in places where they thought, oh, you talk too much to the media. But I was told to get information, and the media tends to know what's going on with these teams. But yeah, there were certain guys and gals you had relationships with that covered the teams. And you're like, hey, what's going on? What's going on with this team? What's going on with that team? And you call that beat writer, you have a relationship, or a national writer, and they kind of get a little bit of an idea, like they hear some information that you might not have heard. So, let's be honest. Will McClay, it's funny. Will McClay actually made a comment this morning that, there's things that we kind of like, you guys say, and we laugh at it a little bit, and I'm thinking, so they listen to what's being said. He meant it in no disrespect. He just said, hey, there's things that that you guys are right on. He says the things that we get wrong the most as media scouts is the fits. How does a guy fit? We automatically think if a guy's long-armed and tall, and he gets up on a guy and he jams guys, well, that's a press man corner. Will says it's not always that easy. So yeah, but I just to answer your question, I think that some of these guys and gals that are in the media, these general managers have really, really good relationships with them, and it kind of helps them. If I could, I'd like to say something about Peter Woods, though, if I could, because at 6'3", 315 pounds, that's the measurements I'm working off of right now, until we get the actual heights and weights, and I'll get all that changed up. But man, this is a guy that you could watch him play in games. Like he would play LSU, Georgia Tech. I thought he played really, really well. And then you watch the SMU game, and I didn't think he was very good. And it made me wonder if something was wrong with Peter Woods. You know, why did you play so well in those games, in those 2 games? And then all of a sudden you just played tall and you got moved around and you couldn't separate off blocks. And it made me wonder about him. But I just think that the majority of his snaps were played in a 3. And if they feel like that he's shown some tendency where he could play some 1, but maybe there's a guy, maybe that's an explosive guy that could play that, you know, that edge, that 4-eye edge we're talking about. And you know, with the upper body strength and the power and stuff like that, there's some guys that are probably back in play that maybe you didn't think was going to be a guy that was in play. And all of a sudden, because he shows some versatility to play a gap over, that a guy like Peter Woods might be in the mix.
So they might find one of those guys more valuable.
Yeah. Absolutely.
An actual in right
absolutely.
Now. Okay. That's terrifying. And Peter Woods is not working out today.
No.
Adam Schefter just reported.
Okay.
So he's going to be a pro day.
I'm glad that you brought this up.
Because he's about to let it out, Wooly. Let it out.
There's a player that we have talked about a lot, Imagn McCoy, the corner from Tennessee. We were hopeful. We were hopeful that maybe he would work out at the combine. Bryan, you didn't seem, when I was listening earlier today, super surprised that we got the news that he will not be doing any of the drills at the combine. Now, this still means I'm not panicking. Immediately I had people reach out like, oh my gosh, if the Cowboys take this guy or anybody takes him in the first round, why? Why would you do this? We saw a similar deal with Will Johnson, different injuries. He didn't end up really doing anything the entire process. We're still hopeful Tennessee Pro Day. You can see McCoy there. But is this any concern to you? Imagn McCoy, arguably the best corner in the draft, who missed all last season with an ACL, not participating in any drills.
It's funny, guys. I had more scouts worried about the measurements of Delane and what he was going to run as opposed to McCoy. I had a scout tell me that he hoped that Delane would run under 4.48 or at 4.48 and things would be a lot better. But there was some concerns about that. I came into this believing that McCoy probably wasn't going to do anything. Now, if we go to March 12th, March 15th, whenever the pro day is in Knoxville, and he doesn't work, count me concerned.
Okay.
I think we are going to see a workout from him. I just think we're going to see it at Tennessee. Unfortunately, we're not going to see it here at the Combine, but I believe in 3 weeks' time, 4 weeks' time, we're going to see a workout from him. So I think that'll make people in the NFL feel a lot better about him. But it was really strange to listen to scouts tell me that they were more concerned about Delane and his size and his speed and what he was going to run than they were talking about with Woods.
What I say?
What about you? Are you?
How do I feel about it?
Okay.
I think the Delane tape. I think the Delane tape that caught me off guard. Caught me off guard because I think Delane. I think he looks fine. I think the way he moves and all. But there were scouts that telling me, because I was asking about McCoy, and they were more concerned about Delane. And I thought that was strange. But
this reminds me a little bit, Bryan, of like the J.C. Horn, Pat Surtain, whatever you want to say the date.
Yeah.
And Surtain started to get nitpicked. And you know what it was is his tape's not flashy and nobody's throwing at him and testing him. But it's just, where's the bad tape? You can't find it. I feel that like Delane's that guy too.
I'm like, because I'm
just technical as hell, does what needs to be done. Is he the fastest? Is he the biggest? No. But you're not catching footballs against him, and you're not getting open against him. And I'll take that corner any day of the week, Iisha.
Yeah, I mean, when I was that's what I was doing. I was going back to just look at my breakdown on him, and I think the biggest thing that I said from him is the fact that I feel like his eyes can get kind of lost in zone coverage sometimes and lose track, but I don't see. He's not like a.
There's not a lot of holes in that game.
Yeah,
and
he's not like a. He's not even. I don't even consider him like a.
Yeah.
Really knock you off your spot type of guy in press, but he still understands leverage enough to like control his body and to make a difference in playing through the receiver. So I don't know. That's kind of weird. As far as the McCoy thing, we've seen an influx of this with guys not working at the combine and doing things at their pro day. It sounds like it's a comfort thing for some guys. It also sounds like it is a more controlled environment for these guys as well to do the work that they want to do. I'm with it. But I also do feel like, Brian, and you can tell me, like, how is this trend that we're starting to see, how is that affecting scouts? Because, of course, they do want to see how you perform in a controlled environment. They want to see how you perform while you stress the hell out. You ain't ate for half the day, because that's what they doing to them kids. And, so do you think that scouts feel a way about the fact that these kids are kind of taking some control back of the situation and being like, now y'all ain't going to send me to my pro day?
Ooh. Welcome to my world from 1992, Iisha. You're now part of this. You and Zach get to be a part of this. You get to be mad at these players. You get to be mad at them in a nice way. Listen, I can't tell you how many days I sat at the 40-yard line here at the old Hoosier Dome and timed players, and always appreciated the young men that put their hand on that line and ran a 40-yard dash win. And we weren't even on TV. We were a quiet, no fans, no fanfare, no NFL Network, no Rich Eisen, no Mike Mayock, no Daniel Jeremiah. We had none of that. But I will tell you one thing: every scout appreciates every player that puts his hand on that line today, tomorrow, and Saturday and Sunday. I promise you that. You want to see these guys compete on the highest level. You want to see them go through all the drills. It's just this is important, but we've allowed, because of the workouts and stuff and our willingness to travel to Baton Rouge and Tallahassee and Knoxville and all these places, we're going to go there. So we might as well, if these players, they're not going to work here, we got to go catch them up there. But man, I'll tell you one thing: you see a kid put his hand on that line, you put a little star by his name, because he is more than willing to compete on a really, really big stage.
The last thing that I wanted to get to with you guys is as we go through this formal visit list, or anybody maybe that you've watched so far this week. Because I do, I want to make sure people are, when they're watching the stack, not only are we talking and giving you the best information here on the combine, and having Bryan there representing us is unbelievable, but the players as well. And so, Iisha, you gave us a little taste on a defensive tackle for Ole Miss earlier, but is there another player that you've watched here? I've got one that stood out to me in Kendall Daniels. I'll get to here in just a moment.
Talk about him.
But you want me to just rock with Kendall, and you guys can figure out who you want to throw out here before we wrap? So Kendall Daniels is a linebacker from Oklahoma, 6'5", 242. He is a converted safety, played safety at Oklahoma State, and he played what is that cheetah position for Oklahoma. So it's basically like your third safety in the box, kind of like a rover if you're familiar and you played that in high school football. But first 4 seasons, Big 12 Freshman of the Year at Oklahoma State, is one of these guys that just had a knack really at OSU for forcing and recovering fumbles. He did a really good job, sure tackler, but he is physically profiled, started 41 of 52 career games, had 9 tackles for loss this past year at Oklahoma. Very interesting body type. Kind of reminded me of a Jaron Curse-esque, if you will. But, I mean, he is a guy closing downhill near the line of scrimmage.
Sleeper.
Phenomenal player. And you're looking at a day 3 type of guy. I've got him in the 4th round personally right now. Cowboys were one of the teams that have had a formal visit with him. I think you need a plan. If you're going to take this guy, you need a plan of how to use him. But as a linebacker that also has, obviously, those safety traits in coverage, he's a guy that can be a real cheat code against tight ends. Physically, how he can match up against them with the size that he has. The screen game can sniff that out. Really good tackler in space. Kendall Daniels, linebacker from Oklahoma, was a fun watch.
He's sleeper, my friend. I was saying it like I couldn't help myself. I also too. I mean, the fact that he's a safety converted linebacker, he looks like he's hunting.
Yes.
It reminds me of a Mustafa. You know how Mustafa comes from depth, comes down and really sniffs through the run and stuff, and he looks like he's hunting. He's outstanding in zone coverage because obviously that's his thing, and he really can he'll ruin your screen game. Mm-hmm. He'll ruin your screen game. For me, I'm looking at his, obviously, I think he still needs to build some durability when it comes to the play strength at linebacker, but that'll come. This is a sleeper player, y'all. And when I saw him on the list, I was like, okay, so I watched him yesterday and I watched him some this morning. I think that Dallas meeting with him, he's not running his 40. Probably at his pro day, because that's how they do things now. But this is a sleeper player, y'all.
He was fun.
I agree with you, Zach. I'm serious. I was excited watching him this morning, and I was like, okay, Dallas, I see you kind of going in the trenches. Because he is kind of a trench player. He is
really good around the line.
You got to be looking at. I think you really got to be looking within the film to find him. Because especially with how deep this safety room is the safety room and linebacker room is. He's kind of like, oh, he's the tweener. Sorry, Brian, I got excited with
No, I could. Do you have another guy you want? Is there another guy you have too? Is there other guy you want to talk about?
Give me yours because I'm still deciphering which one I want to talk about.
Give me a player, Brian.
I'm really excited about. There's a kid named, and I don't know if you've seen this kid, is Traden Stokes from Arizona.
He's on my list.
They met with him.
I've heard great things about this player, Brian.
They met.
I don't know if he's on their list to meet, but I just wanted to throw his name into this mix. I know we're going to get safety play here. I know that's going to be in maybe a couple days or so. I know, but we're not going to have a chance to all get together. But I wanted to put his name out there. And I want to say this, in a day and age where we're trying to find guys that can cover, can play down in the slot, can tackle, can defend the pass, all those things, can blitz, tackle behind the line of scrimmage. Traden Stokes, he's 6'2", he's 200 pounds from Arizona, and he's all those things. He's got the ideal length for this position. He's got that hybrid role I was talking about. He's super tough. He's aggressive. You'll see him drive on the ball in a blink of an eye. He wants to be a part of the action. I think that, to me, the multiple spots, the linebacker, all those things, the physical aspect of the game. When Will McClay was telling me about groups of the safeties, that he liked the safeties, Traden Stokes is a corner playing as a slot. I projected him to be a strong safety type of player. And this guy he knows how to play, like going around people without drawing penalties. I love his desire and his ability to go make plays. Keep an eye on this guy. When it's his turn to run or his turn to work out, the film is really, really, really good on this guy. And I'll be interested to see if Dallas might want to talk to a guy like this. I know he's listed as a corner, but sure, I project him as a strong safety. That would be Traden Stokes, the safety, corner, slot. I projected a safety from Arizona.
Do you have him or Keontae Scott from Miami higher in your stack?
I got Stokes now higher than.
It seems like
than
some
Scott.
Of those guys are starting to, as we get deeper into the film, some of these guys are
they're starting to draw. Yeah, they're starting to drive some guys.
Guys are starting to separate themselves, which is understandable. My guy would be Caleb Elarms-Orr, linebacker out of TCU.
Ooh, awesome.
Okay.
This is one of the more sure tacklers as a linebacker out of this class. Reads the run really well, but I will say his trigger is not fat. He doesn't have a quick trigger. It's not a quick trigger, but
I wasn't sure if you said fat or fast.
No, my bad. No, he's not fat.
Not a fast
He's 6'2", 233. My God. No, no. I just think that sometimes, like, his trigger, he recognizes things, his IQ, he has a really good feel, but it is like a slower processing than with him. But to me, it doesn't seem to really affect how good of a tackler he is and him getting to a spot. But he's not one of those guys that just sees it and just flies. He's going to see it, diagnose a little bit, and then you're going to see him go. It's a little bit slower of a process for him, but I do think that Dallas is, might get another look at him with him being someone that's at TCU, or they might be interested in him. He's obviously on the list, and he's very, we saw him at the Senior Bowl too, make his presence known, running through running backs' faces as you should as a linebacker, run their asses over, and showing off his physicality. I think this is a later round guy that people are going to be interested in. Dallas met with him, in the 30 visits. Well, not 30 visits, in the official visits.
Yep. Yeah, official visits.
Official visits.
Absolutely a good name to know. Bryan, you are doing tremendous work. Can't wait to get you back home with us, and we will continue our usual schedule next week, obviously, here on The Stack. Thank you so much to Iisha Morrison and everybody who is part of this behind the scenes. It is draft season, the Combine. Enjoy it. Soak it up over the course of the weekend. For Bryan Broaddus, Iisha Morrison, I'm Zach Wolchuk. Make sure you're checking out all that merch we've got. Crown Global Media, Doing All Right, The Stack. Get yourself that Scout notebook. As Bryan says, trust your eyes. Until next time, hugs and hand pounds, everybody.